Every new dawn is a gift from God. Today, when you open your eyes and realize that life has given you another day, you've received something money can't buy. The chance to start over, to change course, to dream again. But perhaps you wake up carrying worries, anxieties, and that feeling of not knowing where to begin. Your heart gets lost in so many voices, so many opinions, so many possible paths, that it becomes difficult to discern where to go. It's at this moment that the silent question arises: am I walking in the right direction? How many times have you taken confident steps only to discover you were drifting away from what truly mattered? How many times have you trusted your own strength and ended up exhausted halfway through the journey? Today, the invitation is different. What if, instead of trying to control everything, you let God hold your hand and guide your steps? Perhaps this simple decision can change the course of your entire day and even your life. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel now and receive daily words that will renew your faith. When we think of our life as a journey, we quickly realize that it's not just about moving forward, but about choosing each step wisely. There are times when the path seems wide, illuminated, full of attractive options that seduce the eye and promise immediate ease. On other days, the road seems narrow, strewn with rocks, silent, and even lonely, as if it were more difficult to continue. And it is precisely at these times that we need to remember that God has not called us to walk aimlessly, but to walk a journey of purpose. The psalmist declared that the Lord establishes the steps of a man when his ways please him, meaning that no matter how uncertain the terrain, there is an invisible hand supporting our feet. You may even feel insecure about the choices you need to make, but there is one certainty that never fails. When God guides, there is no false step. Perhaps today you find yourself in this very dilemma between the desire to decide for yourself and the need to surrender control to the Lord. And this decision could be the turning point in your destiny. How many times do we seek quick solutions, believing that with our effort and planning we'll solve everything, only to end up exhausted, without the strength to continue? The anxiety of wanting absolute control over circumstances steals our peace, generating sleepless nights and days filled with haste and pressure. We live in a society that insists we need ready-made answers, foolproof plans, well-designed routes. But real life insists on showing us that there are unexpected turns, doors that close, paths that crumble before us. It is in this contrast between what we plan and what happens that we discover the difference between walking alone and walking guided by God. When we surrender our steps to Him, it doesn't mean the path will always be easy, but rather that we will never be abandoned. Our hearts find rest in knowing that every detail of the journey is being carefully guided by the one who sees far beyond our eyes. And it is precisely in this surrender that a strength is born capable of transforming what seemed like defeat into an opportunity for victory. Think for a moment how many situations in your life could have been different if you had waited for God's direction before acting. How many mistakes could have been avoided? How many dangerous shortcuts overlooked? How many tears spared? But don't look back with regret, because today's message is not about what has already happened, but about what can begin now. The Lord stands before you, ready to guide the next steps of your story, if only you allow Him. He is like a loving father holding the hand of his young child, teaching him to walk firmly and securely. This morning's invitation is simple and profound. Instead of going it alone, trust, surrender, rest. Perhaps the path is still cloudy. Perhaps you can't see the next bend, but the one holding your hand already knows the destination. And when you understand that true security lies not in human control, but in divine surrender, you will realize that even uncertainties can be transformed into signs of God's care. And it is precisely at this point that your journey can take a new direction. We often think that letting God guide our steps is complicated, almost impossible amidst the hustle and bustle of everyday life. But in truth, it's in the small decisions that His presence manifests itself. In the way we choose to treat those around us, in the way we react when offended, or even in the care we take when starting the day with prayer. When we place God at the center, even what seemed mundane takes on meaning, because we discover that He is present not only in life's big choices, but also in the everyday details. He is present in the silence of a calm morning, in the hug we receive, in the advice that arrives at just the right time, in the doors that close and others that open unexpectedly. If every step were seen as an opportunity to invite God to participate, we would no longer be blind. Instead, we would be accompanied by the one who never misses the path. It is in this awareness that we begin to realize that it's not about the speed of our walk, but about the right direction we're heading. And when we understand this, something within us changes forever. Imagine for a moment that your life is like a large map full of roads, some wide and illuminated, others narrow and full of unexpected curves. We often choose the easier paths because they seem less challenging and more comfortable, but they aren't always the ones that lead us to the true destination prepared by God. Other times, we travel difficult paths, where each step requires effort, patience, and faith, and only later do we realize that it was precisely there that we learned the most important lessons. The Lord, like an experienced guide, sees the whole map while we see only a small stretch ahead. He knows where the hidden dangers lie, the shortcuts that seem good but lead us to emptiness, and He also knows the routes that require effort but lead us to victory. And even if at times you don't understand why you're experiencing certain difficulties, you can be sure that each step guided by God is never in vain. It is precisely in this trust that lies the peace that the world cannot offer. Perhaps today you are at one of those crossroads in life, faced with choices that seem decisive, to follow a path the world points to as quick success, or to wait for God's timing, trusting that He has something better prepared. And this is where faith is tested, because haste makes us want to decide quickly, but wisdom teaches us to wait on the Lord. This waiting, often painful, is also the place where God works silently, aligning circumstances, shaping the heart, preparing the ground for something greater than we could ever imagine. It's not about inertia, but about active trust, to keep walking, but always attentive to the Spirit's guidance. And the truth is that each time we choose to wait on God, we avoid setbacks that could cost us dearly. What seems like delay is actually caution. What seems like silence is actually a voice teaching patience. And what seems empty is actually the space being opened for a great manifestation of God's presence, which may be about to happen. How many times have you felt lost, as if you've walked a long way without moving forward? This feeling is common when we try to navigate life's journey with our own strength alone, forgetting that there is a guide ready to lead us. Sometimes we look around and see so many people advancing, conquering, seemingly having everything under control, and our hearts fill with comparison and frustration. But we must remember that each path is unique, and there's no comparing what God is doing in your life with what He does in the lives of others. What seems like a delay may just be preparation for something extraordinary. He knows the pace you can handle, the weight you can carry, the right time to open and close each door. When you allow God to guide your steps, you discover that you don't need to chase the world's approval, because you already have His seal of approval. And this certainty completely changes the way you walk, because it's not about competition, but about trust. It's not about speed, but about direction. And this understanding transforms even apparent delays into seeds of hope. It's curious how, when we insist on walking alone, things seem so heavy, so confusing, and everything becomes a long race with no finish line. Our hearts wear out trying to predict the future, our strength is exhausted trying to resolve every detail, and our minds are lost in worries that lead nowhere. But when we stop and surrender control to the Lord, something supernatural happens. rest invades our soul, peace takes hold of our hearts, and hope begins to be reborn. This doesn't mean that problems disappear, but that we begin to face them with a different perspective. Suddenly, pain is no longer in vain. Difficulty becomes a lesson, and obstacles become stepping stones. What once seemed an unbearable weight becomes an opportunity to see God's faithfulness in action. This is how He teaches us to live not only by what we see, but by what we believe. And when faith becomes the foundation of each step, we discover that the impossible begins to become reality. Perhaps you're currently facing one of those phases where you can't see ahead. It's like walking on a road shrouded in fog, where only the next step is visible and everything else seems hidden. This is the time when we need to trust most, because it's precisely when we can't see that we learn to depend on God's vision. He sees the end from the beginning, knows every curve, every detail, every detour that's still hidden from our eyes. What seems uncertain today will tomorrow be a testament to how perfectly He has guided you. But until then, you must take a step of faith, believing that even when your eyes can't see, your heart can rest in the certainty that God doesn't miss the path. And perhaps, precisely in this part of the journey, lies hidden the greatest surprise of His care, an answer that can completely transform your life. Life is made of choices, and each step we take brings us closer or further away from God's purpose for us. We often believe our daily decisions are too small to be taken to Him in prayer, but the truth is that it is precisely through them that we shape the future. What you choose to listen to when you wake up, how you react to a challenge, the words you use with your family or coworkers, all of these are steps that define the course of your journey. And it is in these seemingly simple choices that we reveal whether we are walking guided by our own will or by divine direction. The Holy Spirit desires to be this constant counselor, the one who whispers to the heart when we should stop, move forward, or wait. But to hear this voice, we must silence distractions and learn to discern. Because God does not compete with the noise of the world. He speaks with gentleness, with peace, with conviction. And when we begin to perceive His presence in every detail, we understand that there are no steps too small to be guided by heaven. It's amazing how often we ignore these subtle signs and follow the easy path, only to discover later that it has led us to burnout and frustration. There are doors that seem like incredible opportunities, but hide traps, and only God can see beyond appearances. He alerts us, gives us signs, touches us with unexplainable concerns. How many times has your heart felt that something was wrong, even when everyone around you said it was the right path? This is God's care trying to guide your steps. But the question is, are we willing to listen? Or do we insist on silencing this voice, trusting more in our own desires than in the guidance that comes from above? When we choose to listen and obey, we realize that even the narrowest paths can lead us to places of abundance. Because true prosperity is not in achieving things quickly, but in standing firm in what God has prepared. And when we walk this way, nothing can lead us astray. Perhaps you're experiencing this exact tension right now, faced with a choice that seems small, but deep down you feel it could change everything. It could be a decision at work, a relationship, a project that seems promising but still leaves doubts in your heart. At this moment, more than ever, the best thing you can do is stop and ask, "Lord, guide my steps." This simple prayer is powerful because it removes the weight of human control and places the journey in the hands of the one who never fails. It is in this act of surrender that the true strength of faith lies hidden. And even if the answer doesn't come immediately, know that God's silence is also guidance. He may be preparing you for something greater, protecting you from a fall, or aligning the perfect timing for a blessing to arrive. And when that timing reveals itself, you will look back and understand that every wait, every pause, every detour had a purpose. But until then, the question remains, are you ready to let God guide this next step? When we decide to trust in God, we often imagine the journey will be smooth, without obstacles or setbacks. But the truth is that even when guided by the Lord, we will still face difficulties, because challenges are part of the growth process. The difference is that when He guides, no stumble is in vain. Every difficulty becomes an opportunity to learn something new, strengthen our faith, and grow in spiritual maturity. Imagine life as a road full of rocks. When you walk alone, you stumble, fall, and get hurt, often without the strength to get up. But when God is by your side, even the rocks that seem like obstacles become stepping stones that elevate you to a new level. He doesn't promise a journey without struggles, but He guarantees that He will never leave you alone on them. And this promise is enough to give us the courage to continue, even when everything seems uncertain. Because even in storms, steps guided by God find safety. It's important to understand that God's direction doesn't always coincide with human logic. How often does He lead us down paths that seem longer, more difficult, but are actually the only ones that lead us to true victory? The world may look at you and think you're behind, that you've missed opportunities, that you haven't yet achieved what you should. But what the world calls delay, God calls preparation. He knows the exact measure of your heart, knows the right time to mature, shape, and strengthen you before delivering you to what is already reserved. It's like a farmer who doesn't harvest before it's time, because he understands that the fruit needs to ripen. So it is with God. He doesn't deliver promises out of season. And this means that each step guided by Him is part of a perfect process, even if it seems slow to us. Therefore, resting in this truth is choosing to walk in peace. Perhaps you're now looking at your life and asking yourself, why hasn't it happened yet? Why does it seem like others are moving forward, while I remain in the same place? These questions echo within us in moments of waiting, and can even lead to discouragement. But the answer is simple and profound, because God knows there's still something being prepared within you, and that every second of waiting is part of His care. What seems like delay is actually protection. What seems like silence is actually a voice teaching patience. And what seems like a detour is actually a direction to a place that will only be understood when you get there. It's in this space between promise and fulfillment that the heart needs to learn to rest. Because those who trust in God understand that there's no delay in heaven's calendar. There's only perfect timing. And it could be that right now, at this very moment, He's preparing something that will completely surprise your life. One of the greatest challenges of letting God guide our steps is letting go of control. Humans tend to want to hold the reins, decide for themselves, and believe they know exactly what's best for them. But life proves to us, time and time again, that we don't have all the answers, that our most detailed plans can crumble overnight. When we realize this, the opportunity arises to see that there is someone much greater, with a plan infinitely better than anything we could imagine. It's in that moment that we learn that surrendering isn't losing, but winning. It's trusting that, even when we don't understand, God knows where He's taking us. And each time we let go of control, we experience the freedom of walking weightlessly, because we no longer depend on our own strength, but on the perfect guidance of the One who never fails. Surrendering control doesn't mean folding our arms and waiting for everything to magically happen, but learning to align our will with God's will. It means continuing to act, dream, and plan, but always with a heart sensitive to His voice. It's like a traveler with a map in hand, but before proceeding, consults an experienced guide who knows every detail of the terrain. You still walk, still make choices, but each decision becomes illuminated by wisdom from above. And this completely changes the way we face our days. Because even when things don't happen as expected, we know there's a reason, a care, a purpose hidden in every detail. This trust frees us from anxiety and fills us with the courage to carry on, even amidst uncertainty. Because those who let God guide never walk in circles, they always walk towards something greater. Perhaps you're right at that point of inner struggle between holding the reins of life or placing them in God's hands. Fear tries to convince you that if you surrender, you'll lose, you'll delay, you'll miss opportunities. But faith whispers that surrender is the only way to find true victory. Your heart even hesitates, because trusting fully requires courage. But that's exactly where transformation happens, the moment you choose to take that step of faith, despite your insecurity. It's at that moment that things begin to align in a way you never could have achieved alone. And it's in this surrender that doors open, paths are illuminated, and even the impossible becomes possible. But the question that keeps echoing within us is, are we ready to truly let go of control and let God lead? When we look back, it's easy to spot moments when we tried to walk alone and ended up stumbling. Perhaps you remember decisions that seemed perfect but ended in frustration, paths that seemed promising but led to burnout, choices that seemed right but left scars on our hearts. These memories may even hurt, but they also serve as reminders that we need something greater than our own wisdom. It is precisely in these moments of weakness that God shows himself most present, revealing that it was never about our ability, but about his grace. He takes our mistakes and transforms them into lessons, takes our falls and transforms them into new beginnings, takes our tears and transforms them into seeds of hope. The past is not meant to imprison us, but to teach us to trust the Lord even more. Because every misstep taken alone teaches us the inestimable value of walking guided by him. Letting God guide our steps also means accepting that the process is as important as the destination. We often ask him to show us the future, as if we wanted a complete map in our hands, but God chooses to show us only the next step. He does this not to confuse us, but to teach us to trust day by day. It's like walking down a road at night, lit only by a small lamp. The light doesn't reveal the entire path, but always illuminates enough for the next step. This is God's guidance. He shows us what we need to know now, and in due time, reveals the rest. This process can generate anxiety in those who want to have all the answers, but it is also the greatest exercise of faith we can experience. Because it is in this walk of trust that we learn to depend completely on the Lord, discovering that the most important thing is not seeing everything, but knowing who is guiding us. Perhaps you're experiencing exactly this feeling of not having all the answers, of not knowing what will happen tomorrow, of feeling unsure about which decision to make. And it's at this point that the heart is faced with choosing between two possibilities: living in constant anxiety, trying to predict everything, or resting in the certainty that God is already in tomorrow. He doesn't just know the future, he's already there, preparing the way. Every detail, every encounter, every circumstance is being aligned in a way you'll only understand later. That's why trusting in his guided steps is the greatest act of freedom we can experience. Because when we let God be in control, even the unknown becomes a safe place. And perhaps it's precisely in this phase of uncertainty that you're about to experience one of the greatest revelations of your life. There's a profound difference between walking in a hurry and walking with purpose. We're often swallowed up by the rush of modern life. We wake up already worried, rush through every task, try to fit in more activities than we can handle, and at the end of the day we feel like we've accomplished so much but experienced so little. Rushing makes us miss the details, steals the beauty of the journey, and weakens our ability to hear God's voice. But when we choose to walk with purpose, every step is conscious, every choice is the fruit of reflection, every decision is delivered in prayer. The heart becomes lighter, the mind clearer, and the soul steadier. Because the focus shifts from speed to direction. The Lord doesn't call us to run wildly, but to walk securely and steadily at the pace of grace. And when we learn to live this way, even the most ordinary days become extraordinary. Walking with purpose means aligning our steps with what God desires to accomplish in us and through us. It means living in such a way that every gesture, every word, and every attitude reflects the Lord's presence. We often seek great signs, visible miracles, and momentous events, but we forget that God's purpose is also revealed in the little things. It's in the smile we offer someone weary, in the patience we offer in moments of irritation, in the forgiveness granted when it would be easier to hold a grudge. Each of these seemingly simple steps carries eternal weight because they are not merely human actions, but manifestations of the Spirit that dwells within us. When we realize this, we understand that purpose lies not only in the final destination, but in every part of the journey. And it is precisely this realization that transforms the way we see life, no longer as a race for survival, but as an opportunity to leave marks of faith and love wherever we go. Perhaps you've felt up until now that your journey lacks a clear purpose, that your steps are merely tentative, aimless, as if you're walking in circles. But the good news is that from the moment you decide to surrender your path to God, everything changes. He takes even the crooked paths and straightens them, takes the stumbles of the past and transforms them into lessons that strengthen the present, takes the emptiness that seemed meaningless and fills it with eternal meaning. It's as if the Lord were saying, "You've never walked alone. I've always been here, ready to guide your steps." And when this awareness invades your heart, a new hope is born. That even if your journey has been confusing up until now, there's still time to start over in the right direction. But the big question is, are you willing to slow down, listen to God's voice, and let Him reveal the true purpose of your path? We often confuse direction with the absence of difficulties. We think that if God is guiding our steps, everything should be simple, without obstacles, without pain. But the truth is that even on the right path, we face storms. The difference is that when He guides, no storm can destroy us. The wind may blow hard, the rain may fall heavily, but there is a steady hand supporting each step. Trusting in God does not eliminate problems, but it gives us the assurance that we do not walk alone. It is like crossing a dark valley knowing that, even without seeing the end, there is a light that never goes out. This light is the constant presence of the Lord, who surrounds us with love and keeps us faithfully. And when the heart understands this, courage replaces fear, hope overcomes doubt, and even the darkest days become bearable. Because the focus is no longer on the size of the storm, but on the greatness of the God who walks beside us. It is at this point that we learn that faith is not the absence of questions, but the presence of trust. It is natural that, in the midst of struggles, the heart questions, tries to understand, seeks immediate answers. But what sustains us are not explanations, but the certainty that God is in control. He sees far beyond what our eyes can see, and that is why we can rest even when we don't have all the answers. Faith is like a bridge that allows us to cross the abyss of uncertainty and reach the other side of the promise. This bridge may shake, the wind may try to destabilize us, but if we keep our eyes fixed on God, nothing can knock us down. It is this trust that keeps us steadfast, even when everything around us seems to be crumbling. And it is precisely in the midst of struggles that we discover the true strength of faith. It doesn't take us out of the battle, but empowers us to win it without losing our peace. Perhaps today you're facing one of these storms: family problems, job uncertainties, health concerns, or fears about the future. All of this seems overwhelming, and you feel like your strength is reaching its limit. But it's precisely in this scenario that God wants to reveal Himself as the guide for your steps. He doesn't promise you won't face struggles, but He does promise you'll never be alone. And this is the difference that changes everything. It's not the absence of battles, but His presence that guarantees us victory. It's possible that what seems like your greatest challenge today is about to become the most powerful testimony of your life. Because the Lord specializes in transforming storms into scenes of miracles. And perhaps, right now, He's preparing something that will make you look back and understand that every drop of rain had a greater purpose than you imagined. There are times when God's direction surprises us because it doesn't follow human logic. He guides us along paths that, to the world's eyes, seem strange, time-consuming, or even meaningless. Perhaps you've experienced situations where everything seemed to point one way, but suddenly God closed that door and opened another completely different one. At the time, it's natural to feel frustration, fear, or even disappointment, but later we realize that it was protection. He knows the tomorrow we don't see, sees the pitfalls that could bring us down, and so He leads us along unexpected paths. It's like a parent who changes a child's path to prevent them from passing through a dangerous place. The child doesn't understand right away, but they trust. So it is with us before God. We don't always understand at first, but we can rest in the certainty that He knows exactly where He's taking us. It is in this process that we learn the importance of obedience. Obedience isn't always easy, because it means giving up our will, our preferences, and even our best-laid plans. But obedience is what keeps us aligned with God's heart. It's what transforms ordinary decisions into firm and sure steps. When we obey, even without understanding, we make room for the Lord to reveal something greater. Obedience is like a key that unlocks spiritual doors that would never be opened by human logic alone. How many blessings have been poured out simply because someone chose to say, "Yes, Lord, I trust in you"? That yes changes stories, transforms destinies, and reveals purposes we would never discover alone. To obey is to walk by faith, knowing that every step taken in trust is sustained by the hand of God. Perhaps right now God is asking you to take just that step, a step of obedience. It could be a decision you've been putting off, a forgiveness you haven't yet managed to release, a path you've resisted following. The heart hesitates because obedience requires courage, but it is precisely this courage that releases the supernatural. What if it is precisely this step of faith that will open the door you've been waiting for? What if today's obedience is the key to tomorrow's victory? Perhaps, in the silence of this morning, God is whispering to your heart, "Trust me, I know the way." And when you choose to obey, even without understanding everything, you will discover that the path prepared by the Lord always leads to places greater than you could imagine. But the question that echoes within us is, are we ready to take this step without hesitation? One of the greatest lessons we learn by letting God guide our steps is that His direction isn't just about reaching a destination, but about being transformed along the way. He doesn't just want to lead you to a place of victory, but to shape your heart so that you're prepared when victory arrives. Every step, guided by God, carries a lesson. Patience teaches us to wait, trials teach us to trust, silence teaches us to listen, and even loss teaches us to value what truly matters. Nothing is wasted when we walk in the presence of the Lord. Even what seemed irrelevant or painful becomes part of our character building. Because God doesn't just guide us out of problems, He guides us into a process of growth. And this process is what makes us stronger, more steadfast, and more sensitive to His voice. It's common to desire shortcuts because they seem to lead us faster to our dreams. But shortcuts can also rob us of the journey's most important lessons. God, in His wisdom, often leads us on paths that seem longer, but are the only ones that prepare us to sustain the blessing that will come. He knows that arriving unprepared can be as dangerous as not arriving at all. So, when you feel the path is difficult and slow, remember, it's not delay, it's preparation. Every obstacle you face is strengthening your faith. Every weight is expanding your vision. Every tear is watering seeds of hope that will blossom in due time. This perspective changes the way we approach life, because we begin to see not only the weight of the journey, but also the beauty hidden in each step. Perhaps right now you're asking yourself, why am I going through all this? What is the purpose of this phase? These questions are human, but the answer is spiritual. You are being shaped. And this process, though painful, is what will enable you to experience greater things than you imagine. It's no wonder that life so often breaks us into pieces, because it is in the pieces that God rebuilds something new, stronger, and more beautiful. If today it seems like the road is too difficult, remember that it's not the end, but just part of the journey. And it may be precisely in this most challenging part that the Lord is preparing the perfect stage to reveal something extraordinary. Because the greatest secret of those who walk with God is this: the process is never in vain, and the end will always be better than the beginning. When we think about letting God guide our steps, it's impossible not to talk about trust. Trusting means believing even when we don't have all the answers, walking even when we can't see the end of the road. Trust is like an invisible bridge between what we ask for and what God is preparing. It sustains our hearts on days of silence, strengthens our souls on dark nights, and keeps us steadfast when everything seems contrary to our expectations. But trusting isn't passive, it's a daily act of surrender. Each morning when we wake, we have the opportunity to say, "Lord, guide my steps today, for I know that alone I would be lost." This simple prayer opens doors for God's presence to manifest itself in practical ways. Because trusting means placing the weight of our entire life in His hands and resting in the knowledge that His care will never fail. Trusting God also means accepting that we won't always understand what's happening in the moment. Often, we can only see a piece of the picture, while He sees the whole picture. The human heart yearns for immediate explanations, but faith learns to live by promises. It is in this place that we discover the difference between faith and control. Control demands proof. Faith rests on God's word. When we accept this, we stop fighting life and begin to walk more lightly, knowing we are not alone. What seemed like an unbearable weight begins to transform into a light burden, because we are no longer carrying everything, but rather He's sustaining every detail. This awareness changes the way we deal with difficulties, no longer as enemies that bring us down, but as opportunities to see God's faithfulness in action. Perhaps you're at a point in your life where trust seems like the greatest challenge. You may have prayed for something for so long and still haven't seen an answer, or you may be experiencing a period of silence where God seems distant. But know that silence doesn't mean absence. Often, God's silence is simply a moment when He works invisibly, preparing something greater than you can imagine. What if it's precisely now, in this time when you feel a lack of answers, that He is aligning everything for the fulfillment of a promise? This possibility changes perspective, because it reveals that even in waiting there is purpose. Trust, then, isn't about understanding everything, but about resting in the fact that He does. And it may be that just when you least expect it, God reveals that every detail was in His hands from the beginning. One of the greatest truths of the Christian journey is that God guides us not only to take us where we want to go, but above all to protect us from where we shouldn't be. How many times, in retrospect, have we realized that certain no's were deliverances, that closed doors were actually invisible shields, that delays were divine protection against something that could destroy us? At the time, it may have hurt, it may have seemed unfair, but today you can see that you were cared for. This is the Father's love. He not only leads us forward, but also protects us from falls we wouldn't otherwise endure. That's why we need to learn to trust even when the path doesn't make sense. Because, while we're focused on the immediate, God already sees the eternal. And this perspective gives us the courage to keep walking, even in the face of uncertainty. After all, every step guided by Him is also a step guarded by His hand. Letting God guide our steps also means recognizing that we do not walk alone. There are times when the weight of the journey seems greater than we can bear, and our hearts feel like giving up. But it is in these moments that the Lord reveals himself as the one who carries us along, who sustains us, who lifts us up when we fall. He doesn't just show us the way, he walks with us. This is the difference that transforms everything. We are not just following a direction, we are accompanied by a presence. And this presence strengthens us, consoles us, fills us with hope. It's as if each step is enveloped by an invisible embrace, a silent certainty that we are never abandoned. When we understand this, loneliness loses its strength, fear loses its voice, and even the darkest days begin to be illuminated by the flame of faith. Because the journey guided by God is also a journey marked by the constant companionship of his love. Perhaps you're in one of those moments where you feel like you can't take another step forward. The weight seems unbearable, the road seems too long, and you feel like giving up. But that's precisely when God whispers, "I am with you." And this simple phrase has the power to renew your strength, rekindle hope, and set you on your feet once more. Don't underestimate what the Lord can do in a weary heart, because it's precisely in weakness that he reveals his strength. Each seemingly impossible step can become a testament to the fact that you didn't walk alone, but he carried you. And perhaps the great turning point in your journey is about to happen just when you thought you had no strength left. Because it's at this point of total surrender that the supernatural often manifests itself most powerfully. Letting God guide our steps also means learning to view life with gratitude. When we walk under his guidance, we begin to realize that nothing happens by chance, and that even the simplest details carry meaning. Waking up, breathing, having a new chance each morning. All of this is proof that God is present, guiding us with love. Gratitude changes the way we face our days because it teaches us to value not only the great victories, but also the small miracles that happen silently. An unexpected encounter, a word of comfort, an opening door, a deliverance we don't even notice. All of this is part of divine care. When our heart learns to give thanks, even the most difficult steps become lighter because we know we are not alone. And it is in this state of gratitude that we discover that life, even with its challenges, is always filled with God's goodness. Gratitude also teaches us to trust more. After all, if we can recognize how he was present in the past, it becomes easier to believe that he will continue to be present in the future. Remembering the moments when God sustained you in the most difficult times is a powerful fuel to face what lies ahead. How many times have you thought you couldn't make it, and yet he gave you strength? How many times did you think you were alone, but realized there was an invisible hand guiding every detail? Gratitude opens our eyes to see that God's faithfulness never fails. It's like a book written page by page, where each chapter is marked by his grace. And if he has cared for every step up to this point, why would he stop caring now? This understanding strengthens faith because it reminds us that the same God who was there yesterday remains the God of today and will also be the God of tomorrow. Perhaps you need to stop for a moment today and reflect on how much you already have to be thankful for. Don't just focus on what's still missing, but see how much you've already received. This shift in perspective doesn't eliminate problems, but it does make them less powerful in the face of the blessings already experienced. And it may be precisely this attitude of gratitude that opens the door to something new in your life. Because when we give thanks, we attract even more of God's presence onto our path. Gratitude is like a beacon that illuminates the road, even on the darkest nights. And when it becomes part of our routine, we begin to walk with greater hope, confidence, and peace. But perhaps what you haven't yet realized is that gratitude not only transforms the way you walk, but may be setting the stage for the greatest turning point in your life. At the end of this reflection, it becomes clear that life is a journey made of choices, but that it only finds full meaning when each step is guided by God. The Lord did not call us to live lost, trying alone to decipher the mysteries of the road, but to walk in communion, trusting that He knows the beginning, the middle, and the end of our journey. When you surrender the direction of your life to Him, you are not only making a spiritual decision, you are also choosing the best route to live in peace, hope, and fulfillment. The winds may blow, the storms may come, but those guided by the Lord remain steadfast, because they do not depend on their own strength, but on the faithfulness of the one who never fails. And it is this trust that transforms the weight of the journey into lightness, doubt into certainty, fear into courage. Therefore, at this moment, I invite you to pray with me. Lord, this morning I place each of my steps in your hands. I recognize that I do not know the path alone, but I trust that you are the light that illuminates my journey. Guide me in my decisions, strengthen my heart in difficulties, and give me wisdom to always follow your direction. May I not get lost in easy shortcuts, but learn to wait for the right time of your will. Bless my family, protect my work, sustain my dreams, and protect me from all evil. May each step of today be guided by you, and may I walk with faith, hope, and gratitude. In Jesus' name, amen. This simple yet sincere prayer is the key to not only starting the day, but living every moment of it with purpose and peace. And before I close, I want to leave you with a word of encouragement. It doesn't matter how you started your journey. What matters is how you decide to walk from now on. If up until now, there have been stumbles, falls, or wrong choices, know that God can transform everything into a new beginning. He is ready to hold your hand, guide your steps, and take you to places you never imagined. Walking with Him is knowing that the future is not a threat, but a promise. May this message be like a seed planted in your heart this morning, generating renewed faith and hope. And if this word has brought peace to your life, subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Because every step guided by God not only illuminates our path, but can also be the light that transforms someone else's life.